Like Kanye entered his career, I think, like more as an adult, and Justin has always been under some form of manipulation since childhood. And it's like he's used to it in a way, but it's not like ideal at all. So, so I feel like he has this very nice energy, but it's really like it feels like a thin line, and then there's this huge imposition, and then there's Haley's energy, which is just feels nice, but it's like in his space, you know, like it shouldn't be like feeling like, let's say you like an aura, you know, like let's say you live in an egg, and like who's in your egg, like can it just be like your space, you know, or are there a bunch of people like imposing on your space? And so I kind of feel like she's like in his space when, you know, why does he need to support her energy so much? Like, is my feeling. All right, so Justin. Yeah, and I feel like he has like some frenemies. You know how like frenemies can be like your best friend, like it's like Judas or whatever, like your best closest buddy. You know, spiritually speaking, like lessons are disguised like in like beautiful people or like fun ideas or what, you know, and like because otherwise you wouldn't engage with those people unless they were like appealing in some way. So then you don't, you know, like your spirit wants to learn these various lessons, and so we're coaxed into them like in various ways. So I feel like he has some frenemies that are really like making things harder than they should be, for sure, and like almost like setting him up for failure. But like he has this like like I live in Canada, you know, but I'm American and he's like Canadian living in the States. But I feel like there's just like that Canadian part of him that I can relate to. Uh, Perseveres, you know, despite everything. But but it's really like very marginal, and it's really like quite a battle like he's in. I feel like in terms of yeah, all these encroaching energies and stuff, and like the very little amount of space he's allowed to be himself, you know. Um, I feel like someone's planning something like very uncool to try to set him up into some bad situation like in the next 2 months. So hopefully that doesn't come to pass. You know, it's like he needs to rely on his own energy more and his own thoughts more about how he wants to lead his life, despite like all these people trying to latch on and control him. Like for instance, like in the record industry, if you sign a deal, it's not just like I'll do this service for you and give me cash. Like it's not that simple. Like they try to really get in your life, and like it's way more controlling than it needs to be, you know, if things were just. And like also a lot of record labels like have like death clauses and stuff, so like you're almost like worth more dead than alive kind of to them, because they somehow like leverage getting like your entire catalog or something, like if you die, or it's like very unethical, I think, for them to have like a life insurance policy on the artist and stuff. I don't know if that's the case with him, but like you know, interesting to note that like a lot of artists like died at 27, and like why, you know, like it's like it's interesting, you know, like something to consider, like anyway. So I feel like there's something that I don't get a good feeling about that. um So I'm just gonna try to see like some positive avenues here. Yeah, so I think like if you were to find like a new lawyer, let's say, to try to like go over with a fine tooth comb like his contracts and stuff, and just try to like figure out something that's more sane for like the moving forward, you know. Because he might have just said yes or been forced to say yes because of like whoever was controlling his career prior. Like he needs to kind of like find his own path and what works for him. And a lot of artists like can like have their own labels and like book their own shows and like, you know. And I would argue like it's not always necessary to like play a stadium, or like you can broadcast your stuff. Like there's people like what's his name, Sonny, it's on my brain, I'm like old and stuff, but like there's this Chicago blues guy who instead of touring like had his own club, and people just came to see him play at his club in like the south side of Chicago, I think. I forget his name, but I think that's a cool. It's sort of like people go to visit Graceland. It's like, hey, I'm an artist. Like, you know, I live in LA. Like, if you're Justin Bieber, come see my show. You know, and it's like where his show is like a space that he likes and whatever. It's sort of like Prince had it in his house. Like he had like a stage, and like the public could come. Like a friend of mine told me she went to see him play at his home, so that's pretty cool. So like there's a lot of different ways to like have a musical career within your boundaries that are like outside of the template of like what's been going on, that you know that isn't perfect for everybody, because like touring constantly like breaks up families, and it's not like a natural way to live, and it's very ungrounded, and it can cause like mental health issues for people, and like losing their relationships, and like people who, let's say you're a cool, I know I'm like digressing, but like let's say you're a cool band, and like, you know, you're in your hometown and you like jam with your friends, and you're like, let's make a record, and then they make a record and everybody loves it, and then you're on a bus all the time. That's not like what made you productive in the first place, you know. Like it's fun to play shows and everything, but like not all the time, right? So so that whole like, let's just pretend we like smash that whole template of like touring constantly. You know, not everybody loves the aesthetic of a stadium show, or like you know, obviously it's dangerous, like we've seen in the past for the audience. So something like, let's say Justin Bieber, to like save himself, like created a brand new template for how he was going to operate as an artist and just to live his life on his own terms. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Because like I think if he just keeps going down this road that he's on now, like it's not a good road. In line with that is like, you know, I feel like his relationship with Haley was kind of imposed on him, is the feeling I get. Like, in it was like someone had an idea and they're like, this is gonna happen, and then they made it happen, like instead of like letting nature take its course, or like random events, like, you know, like it's not always good to like get what you want, you know, because like a human desire is like less cool than like what God wants for you, you know, kind of thing. So to be grasping is like potentially grasping onto something that doesn't even serve you. So like in the case of Haley, like if they weren't an ideal couple, she's missing out on being with the person who would really make her happy by thinking she this other thing is like what she wants, like a desire, like so there's a certain amount of going with the flow that people have to do to like live a good life, instead of being like possessed about an idea of an ideal they have, and jealousies or what, like her whole rivalry with, if that's even a thing, like with Selena Gomez. It's like if everyone was going with the flow, like that like rivalries wouldn't exist at all. So it's like, and if people drop their human desires for the good of all concerned, like to just fall into Tetris into place, like it just would be like way cooler. Yeah, so if you're gonna be grasping and like, then you're gonna learn the lesson of grasping, which is like a sort of karma type thing. So that's interesting. And then whoa, my cat just knocked over something, so that's like a validation of what I just said. Okay, so okay, back to Justin Bieber. I feel like someone's like, there's like, I feel some anger towards what I'm saying. Okay, so okay, how this is like, it seems like a digression, but like, how Elvis wanted to be in like cool movies? Like there were a lot of cool, very like socially aware movies that were happening in like the 50s and 60s, and he wanted to do more than just like touring constantly, right? So, but then his like weird manager, the Colonel, who was like really possessive of him and controlling and stuff, like was like, okay, you want to be in movies, let's be in these like highly like we'll get a lot of revenue if you go into these sort of popular style movies that aren't like that interesting. And but I think he would have rather been in like something cool, like alongside Marlon Brando or something like that, and he would have been good in them. But it's like these people who had a stake in his success like wouldn't allow him to just be who he wants to be, and like, you know what I mean? So I mean, the whole beginning of Elvis's career was just like him living his life, being curious, like checking out different stuff and like developing those interests and bringing them to a certain point of like excellence. And then other people just grabbed a hold of him and like, do this, do that, and like he ended up being unhappy, So in the same case of like Justin Bieber, like he needs to like be unafraid of like a loss, let's say like loss of a relationship, loss of a record deal, like, you know what I mean? Like the Prince had to like basically get rid of his identity to be like, away from his record deal and stuff. Like the whole record deal, the whole music industry thing is like not structured well. Like there's some people who operate well within it, like who have fair deals that are very simple. Like for instance, I don't know everything about everything, but like I'm aware that like Touch and Go in Chicago, like I think they have a 50-50 deal. Just like, we'll give you 50% of what we sell in perpetuity. So like they just keep making their vinyl or whatever. And that's it. There's no other like expectations beyond that. So as far as I know. And that's very different than signing with like Geffen or whatever. So, and in the case of like Kurt Cobain, like, was he worth more dead than alive? Like, in the, if there was like a life insurance policy on him, or like, it's just like, the less complicated you know, like businesses, the better. So like I really feel that like for Justin Bieber's safety, he needs to restructure his business. And like if for some reason his marriage doesn't last, like to not beat himself up about that, because like it's possible that it was kind of imposed on him in some way, that like someone was really driven to like make it happen, which wasn't going with the flow of what like God wants and stuff. If it does work out and it's like safe and happy and he feels fulfilled, like great, you know. But like if it's not kind of perfect, it's fine to like be yourself and like release that. And like if she loves him unconditionally, she's gonna let him have that free will. If she's possessive of him, she won't let him have that free will and be very like grasping. So it's like, which is it? So like I'm sorry to pick up all this like like drama about like but it's like that's what I pick up. Okay, so yeah, I just feel like he should write down like his top 5 like things I want for my life, things I want to create. Just try to really simplify things and not give so much consideration to all his hangers on or like his like frenemies that are like either living in his house or around all the time and like benefiting from his success and like demanding things of him. And like he needs to just go like, okay, my life before today involved a lot of people telling me what to do, benefiting from my energy in various ways. And now starting today, I like start my new life where I make the decisions, and if people are not cool with that, then they're against my free will, which means they don't love me unconditionally. And that is what it is. Like you can't like get mad that people aren't behaving correctly. You just have to like observe that they're not behaving correctly and just like accept it without thinking like, oh, I can change that, or like it just is. Anyway, so yeah, and I feel like I don't know if he has like any other properties or something like that, but like let's say he had a place in Mexico or Belize, or like I feel kind of like in that neck of the woods, where he's less monitored all the time and like can just be like, you know how like Lenny Kravitz has like a ranch in Brazil or something, like that kind of vibe where it's like I can be myself, have my projects, like I don't feel like he should move to Brazil or anything, but like feels like West Coast like just to have a place where it's like he can be himself and not be like in like the blender of LA like all the time. For his own kind of like safety, and also like I'm not saying don't have a place in LA, but like to have a place where it's like your zone, you know, like where you can work productively without a bunch of people like knocking on your door or like harassing you or taking up too much of your valuable time. You know, having boundaries, and it can be like very sad to like take stock and figure out like, oh my gosh, like I need boundaries with my own family, or I need boundaries with these people I care about, but like maybe they're not treating me the best. Like it might take some time to kind of look at that and, you know, and feel okay with it, but it's like you really just can't control other people, but you can have boundaries for yourself to like live the life that you want without feeling like attacked or whatever. Okay, this is so like intense. reading. But I really feel like he can make some like very beautiful things, but like maybe he wants to make like less stuff of more value to him, let's say. So there might not be like a constant cycle of like album, 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 video, 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 but it's like the stuff that he